Why aren't the Muslim boys shooting up New York City? Whatever happens inside of New York City happens because the government wants it to happen. New York City wants gun crimes to happen inside of New York City because that's what you call capitalism. And slavery is capitalism. And that's why they brought these African slaves to America to capitalize off of them. And that's why they Christianized them, to keep them under slavery. Slavery never ended for black people in America. Black people will always be slaves inside of America as long as they are Christians in America. Christianity is the greatest slavery system which was created by man. The Bible even says, honor your earthly masters like you honor your Lord. Most black people don't even know why they are Christians. Black people are Christians because they put a gun to your daddy's head, they put a knife to your mama's heart, and they placed a rope around your brother's neck. That's why black people are Christians. And they are specifically Christians because King Charles II mandated that all black slaves be Christianized in all of his slave colonies in the year 1660. And black people are still Christians in America, and therefore they are still slaves in America. The white Christian brothers are the ones who are enslaving the black Christian slaves, and black people are still following Christianity. They have been chaining black people up since 1622, and they are still chaining up black people in 2022. They don't want it to stop, and black people don't want it to stop, because black people are honoring their masters like they are honoring their Lord. Therefore, the black Christian brothers are going to go out there and shoot up New York City, and this is done to enrich their white Christian brothers on the police force and other white Christian brothers in other industries that capitalize off of blacks committing crimes inside of New York City. Now, why aren't the Muslim boys shooting up New York City? That would never happen inside of New York City. These black boys are under the Christian trance, and they do what their white Christian brothers tell them to do under the U.S. Christian Empire. The Muslim Empire is a totally different empire, and the people who are currently in power of New York City government wouldn't be in power anymore if the Muslim boys came into town. There will be new laws and new rules, and everybody inside of New York City will have to get on their knees and pray to Allah. And this is why they have the black, Hispanic, and white Christian brothers shooting up New York City. They control the behavior of the New York City population. New York City doesn't have to spend extra money to control the people. They just flood the city with guns and tell the people, we don't know how to stop guns coming from the gun pipeline. They can't stop the flow from the magical gun pipeline. You have to remember that they couldn't stop the crack epidemic. The American government was the one who was paying Manuel Noriega hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars to bring crack cocaine into cities like New York City. And then they magically created the war on drugs and the Rockefeller drug laws, which sent minorities to jail for over 20 years. Gun crimes control the behavior of the people inside of New York City, and the people of New York City don't pay attention to the criminals or the slave masters in politics or the government. The people keep their minds occupied with crime, and they never think about going after the real criminals in the government. Y'all fight each other, and y'all never fight your slave masters. Charlie Chaplin said in The Great Dictator, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They don't fulfill their promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Eric Adams will never fulfill his promise of a crime-free New York City. That's the scam that he used to become the mayor. And that's why America calls Muslim people terrorists, because Muslim people fight against Christian terrorism. These crimes in New York City don't happen in Muslim cities. The top 50 murder rates on the planet are all Christian and Roman Catholic Christian cities. The Muslim world is nowhere on that list. Crime is how Christians control their people. If the Muslim boys took over New York City, then there would be no more gun crimes inside of New York City, because the white Christian brothers would no longer be empowered to flood the city with guns and pretend that they don't know where the guns are coming from. And they will no longer have jobs in law enforcement to chase and hunt down the gun criminals who are being supplied with the guns by their white Christian brothers. They gave the blacks the tools to pick the cotton, and they made money after selling the cotton. They now give the blacks the guns to shoot up New York City, and they now make money off of hunting, arresting, and jailing the blacks in New York City. Therefore, this is why you will never see the Muslim boys shooting up New York City. You will never see the Muslim boys doing drive-by shootings in New York City. You will never see them with ISIS and Taliban flags on their car and shouting out Allahu Akbar. That ain't gonna happen in New York City. If that happened, then there would be a federal takeover of New York City, and they would tell all of the NYPD officers to stay home, and New York City will see a real shutdown, not a fake COVID-19 shutdown that said that essential workers could go to work. Nobody would be able to go to work. If the Taliban took over Afghanistan in less than a week or more, then the Taliban would be able to take over New York City in less than 3 days. Because if the NYPD doesn't know where the guns are coming from, then the NYPD wouldn't know where the Taliban is coming from. New York City and America can talk about white supremacists shooting black people, crazy white boys shooting up white children in schools, black on black crime, gang violence, 11-year-old innocent children being shot and killed by stray bullets, shootings on the train, and all of these gun crimes. But in reality, these are government orchestrated crimes which occupy and control the minds of the people, and therefore deflecting the attention away from the political criminals who enslave the people.